My baby takes
the
the
Fitbit.
morning train. She works from 9 to 5 and then she takes... I don't know any good songs. But you said sing a song. That's the first one that came to mind.
I thought you were going to like get on board with just the fit tip.
But what song would we sing for
Just the fit tip.
Just the fit tip.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just a fit tip. We are talking today about what are the best supplements.
Ooh, this is a good one.
It
What
is a
are
good
the
one.
best supplements? All right.
So, in my opinion,
In your opinion,
my
what are the
opinion.
best supplements, Nevin?
actually, first of all, the best supplements come in brown paper bags from Mexico, but we're not talking about those supplements.
We're talking about legal supplements that you can use in any tested sport.
Correct, that you can get from any supplement store. You don't need a prescription for. Keep in mind, they say you can use in any sport, but you should always either use third-party tested because there are contamination when you use. There can be contamination
What do
when
they
you
call
use.
it? Batch tested?
Batch tested.
Do
It's
they
like a
have that here as
third-party
well?
batch tested thing where they,
Yeah.
because sometimes proteins and creatines and all these pre-workouts, they're just made in these giant vats like over in China or India, and they just don't clean them out well, and so there might be a
contain
pharmaceutical
some- yeah,
batch
yeah.
beforehand, and then they clean out, put protein, and you're going to get leftover bits of stuff that
You
might
do
be
a P test and you'll ping for something.
correct
Some sort of illicit substance.
for trace amounts of something that's not allowed.
In Australia and Australian sports, they suggest that you just, as a blanket rule, don't use any American supplements at all, and
It's just, I think it's just supplements in general, unless it's a third-party tested batch supplement.
unless exactly. So they say don't use any other supplements other than the ones on the Australian list that have been batch tested by their testing company.
Mm-hmm.
So they know without a shadow of a doubt that those supplements are clean and have exactly what they have in them. A lot of American supplements, they're very liberal with what they use. They don't have to disclose everything that's on the packaging. And
Proprietary blend.
they also often get recalled a few months after that they're made, and this is just a constant cycle. So if
And
you
this
are
is-
in a high level sport,
Yeah.
this is very important to know, like AFL or soccer, like basically any sport at all. A lot of the substances that you could be taking that you think is just a regular pre-workout or a protein powder may have some small trace amounts of illicit substances or substances that are just not cleared for your division or whatever sort of level you're playing at. It is very, very common that happens.
Correct. I think in Australia, you have to actually show what's going into your products. I think in the US, it's more on the FDA to prove that it's actually something that's not meant to be in there.
There's only certain things they have to disclose. They don't have to disclose every ingredient.
Right, but I think a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but there has been actual evidence brought forward and cases where less reputable supplement brands have actually deliberately put like restricted substances into their batches for the handful of first batches that they make. So people are actually, taking mild steroids or supplements like that. So they get these great results. Everyone talks about how good it is, and then they phase it out afterwards.
That's evil.
It is evil.
And genius.
Evil and genius.
Oh my
That's
God.
happened a few times where people have been caught out actually putting stuff in there that they shouldn't. So
Okay.
you always have to take it with a pinch of salt. Be careful when you're taking supplements. But best two supplements, in my opinion, creatine and protein powder. Right?
But why never?
So simple, but so good. Creatine, and let's just go up full screen here. Creatine is one of the most studied, if not the most studied, supplement in terms of peer-reviewed journal articles and peer-reviewed studies.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me switch this back. Boom. Cool. It's one of the most, and it's had double-blind. What do they call that? Double-blind studies, where basically the people administering it don't know who's getting what. The people taking it don't know who's getting what. There's placebos. And,
no one knows anything.
And basically, creatine has been proven many times that it is actually an effect. There's statistical significance in its effect when it comes to performance. Okay, so do you want to talk about a little bit about creatine?
Well, no, exactly the same. That's all that I know about it is that it works. Like I read through some of the literature for it as well, and this was one of the things that when I did the ASEA course, they went over that creatine is one of the only things that they suggest that you take because it's the only thing that is scientifically proven to be known to be effective.
Yeah. And so basically creatine, and there are things like caffeine and stuff which are good if you need.
There's a few other things that they have that are like, they have like a tiered list. Like creatine is known, and then there's like next and not effective. There's a few other levels of it. Yeah.
So energy systems. The body has a few different energy systems. You have your aerobic, which is an oxygen-based energy system, which is like if you're going to go for a slow jog for 45 minutes, like that is using mainly your aerobic system. Keep in mind, it is never one or the other. It is always a sliding scale, which is why when you see a 100-meter sprinter, that is almost 100% anaerobic, but they're still huffing and puffing at the end because there is still an aerobic component to that exercise, right? So if you are doing slow, steady, long-term things, it is going to be primarily oxygen-related energy system, aerobic. We are talking about the anaerobic energy system, which does not require oxygen to produce energy. It is your ATP-PC phosphate creatine system, right? So creatine is one of the substrates needed to make energy in that energy system. So when you flood your body with excess creatine, and there is a loading phase when you take creatine, you can either take a huge amount for the first week, and then once you're saturated, you can bring your levels down and just have a maintenance level, or you can do maintenance level for about a month, and it will eventually saturate your levels. When you have this saturation of creatine, you have more substrates needed for that anaerobic energy system, which means when you're lifting weights, which is primarily an anaerobic exercise, right? If we're maxing out for a heavy set of 6, it's only going to take you 15, 20 seconds tops, right?
Yep.
You might be able to squeak out an extra rep or a couple extra kilos before those muscles fatigue from running out of the substrates necessary to finish that set.
Or if you're doing a big session, like a big volume session, you'll have more in the tank to get an extra 10, 15 minutes out of the session total than you would. You'll be able to get maybe a whole nother exercise out as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it improves that performance, and it improves the recovery between sets and the recovery after working out. So if you have more recovery and you can perform a little bit better, you get
steroids.
No.
Oh, sorry.
What?
You get better.
You get more gains.
Yay.
You get more gains, right? So creatine's great. It's going to help you improve your recovery and performance set by set and workout by workout just a little bit. We're talking 0.5% here, guys, right? This is not a magic powder that you take it and all of a sudden you're going to be doing 10 extra kilos in your bench press.
It's a small amount.
No, it's you're going to get small, but a very small improvement session after session, year after year is going to give you big gains.
Exactly.
So creatine, very effective in the long term.
So the next one we're going to talk about, steroids, right?
No.
What's the next one?
Protein.
Okay, yes. Okay. Protein. One of the other only...
You're trying to get us demonetized before we even get monetized. How dare you, sir?
Only other products that the supplements that work. And why protein, Evan? Why is protein so important to have?
Well, protein is a really important macronutrient for protein synthesis. I mean, it is the macronutrient for protein synthesis.
It's even in the name.
So it is. So, I mean, basically, if you want to build muscle, or if you've worked out, and when you work out, you are putting all these micro tears into your muscle for that protein to then go in and your muscles to heal and recover, you need protein. All right.
Yep.
So if you don't have any protein in your diet,
if you don't have a good wholesome diet with a very large amount of protein, or you are exercising a lot and just like extra recovery, it's a lot easier to have a protein supplement than to just eat a lot all of the time.
Yep. And that's the thing. So like most people aren't protein deficient. Right. So for the everyday person, the weekend warrior, someone that's training once or twice a week, if you just eat, chicken breast and some steak and some eggs during the week, like you're more than likely going to have an adequate amount of protein. Yeah. We talked about this before on other episodes and on other podcasts, but if you're trying to build muscle, really 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body mass per day is what you should aim for. So most people are on the low end, but all athletes sort of know that, and they do try to push those levels a little higher. Yep. Now, if you're talking about bodybuilders who are training 6 to 8 times a week, crazy heavy sessions, a heap of muscle damage, they're massive already, they can have, 3 grams of protein per kilo a day. And if you already weigh 100, 110 kilos, geez, if you're going to have 330 grams of protein a day, it's a lot of protein. Yeah. And also, if you're trying to limit your overall calories, so let's say you're an athlete and you're trying to maintain 100 kilos for competition. You can't go over 100 kilos.
What you eat becomes more
important. But you need 300 grams of protein. And if you were to get that all from steak, well, it's going to blow your calories out.
That's a lot of steak.
So protein powder, I would say, is an effective alternative. It's an effective way to get protein in that's not going to blow your calories out the ass, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the main reason why I would recommend.
And there was one late addition. We haven't. I've written it down on. It's one of the only ones that no one really talks about. But we'll probably go over that one in a different podcast.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? Other benefits of high protein. Protein has the highest TEF, which is the thermic effect of food. So when you eat something, it takes a certain amount of energy to break down that food. Yeah, fat will only burn like 2 to 4% of its own calories.
Yep.
To break itself down. Protein is like 8 to 12%. And carbohydrates are 8 to 12%, and protein is like 25 to 30%. So if you're having 100 grams of protein, that's 400 calories. 20 to 30% of those calories get broken down just from breaking the protein down. So if you have a really high fat content diet versus a really high fat calorie content diet versus a very high protein content diet, let's say you're both to ingest 2,000 calories of one just fat and one just protein, right? The person that's eating just protein will actually lose more weight because the protein is burning down. They're in more of a deficit, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a big one there. Have I got anything else written there? Easy solution. It's probably more. You're going to get more people say, "Oh, I go keto because it satiates my diet. Like I don't feel hungry." That's actually kind of trash because like if you think about how many, that doesn't make sense. But people say it. They like to get on this bandwagon of I feel full when I eat just fat.
Well, it's like maybe you're not eating just fat though. Like with the keto diet, you have a lot more meat.
It's a lot more protein as well. It's a lot more protein too. Yeah. But basically, you're talking, you got 4 calories per gram of protein. You have 9 calories per gram of fat. So you have 100 grams of fat. It's not much. You can have twice as much of protein and still be under the calories,
absolutely.
Right? So it is more satiation really in the long run.
Yeah.
And because its glycemic index is not as high as like sugary things, like high carbohydrate things, you won't be as hungry straight away. It's longer to break down.
Cool. And then just to finish off as well, one extra thing that we probably forgot to add on the list would be something a little more different.
What are you doing?
As well. We're not going to talk about that one today either? Okay. No. All right, moving on.
Guys, if you want to supplement your training, creatine and protein powder,
the only way to go.
The only way to go. Plus, just check to make sure it's a third-party tested, batch tested.
So you know what you're getting.
Exactly. Awesome.
Right. Thanks very much. Tip on supplements.
Just a tip of fitness on supplements.
See you next time.
See you guys.